everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Ball with me, Collie. This week I am joined by Paddy. Paddy, what's the crack?
How's it going? You say this week, every week you're joined by Paddy.
Every week I'm joined by Paddy. Yeah, it makes no difference what week it is. Paddy's always here. Paddy, we have a good show again this week. We have another guest on. I think this one is going to be a lot more educational, I think, than most weeks. We're going to be talking to one of the most, I think, from what I've heard, what I've read, people have talked to, one of the most decorated coaches, in my opinion, in Irish football. Definitely has coached from. Go on.
I think for both of us, just another plug. 4 separate people have contacted us about this man to get him on the podcast.
Yeah. He's definitely renowned for coaching in Irish football. He is a former FAI coach and a licensed coach as well. So, I mean, that speaks for itself. He's the author of 2 books, which we will be talking about as well. Paddy, we are joined by Larry Mahony. Larry, what's the crack?
Hi, fellas. Thanks for having me.
That's no problem at all.
I'd like to say thanks to those 4 members of my family who called you. I
was wondering why they all had the same second name. That was strange.
2 aunts and 2 uncles.
Larry, right? No, it's no problem. Usually what we do is we'll ask you a few questions, but I think what we're going to just jump into straight away is the questions that we've been sent in from the listeners, just to get the ball rolling, and we'll ask you a few questions. So we're going to bring us into the question section. Now, I know you're going to compliment the production value on this because everybody does it. Everyone does it. So,
Game of Thrones is a lot to answer for.
I'm going to get you a fishing rod, Collie. I swear to God. Every week.
I crave it. I crave the compliments for them beautiful pieces of work. We're going to jump on to the first one. I'll go first one. First one was sent in to us by Harry316. So, best player you've coached?
Look, I can only give one answer to that question. I'd be slaughtered if I didn't say Roy Kane.
Could you see? I suppose. At what age was he when you were kind of looking?
Roy was actually. I was actually the instructor on the Falls course when Roy went to Nottingham Forest. So we had him. I think he was around 9. I couldn't be sure. I think he was around 19, whatever the age he was at that time. Yeah. So he, like I said, he went straight from the Falls course to Nottingham Forest.
So he was obviously playing for his own team and doing the Falls course, which is ourselves. So how did someone like Notts Forest pick him up?
I think it's a famous story now at this stage. I think I think Noel McCabe, who was the Forest scout at the time, went up to watch someone else when Rockmount were playing Belvedere in Fairview Park, and he went to watch someone else. I think it might have been Alan O'Neill, and he ended up seeing Roy Kane.
It's that same thing, Paddy, isn't it? Every guest we talked to that has played, someone has come to watch somebody else, and they are the ones that got picked up.
They get picked up, yeah.
It's crazy, it always happens. Right, so best coach or best player you've coached was Roy Kane, yeah? I mean, I don't think there's going to be many that's going to argue with that.
No. And the funny thing about it is, Collie, as well, and again, I get slaughtered for this all the time. At the time, we shows you how much I know, because at the time, I don't think I would have rated Roy as the best player on the course at that time. Yeah. There were a couple of fellas, Pat Fenlon, who obviously you know about, and Tony Norman, who was in the North. If anyone had, as you can imagine, I've answered this question quite a few times now. Yeah. And at the time, the 2 lads, we probably thought that they were ahead of him at that time, Yeah. But I think what the thing was with Roy, he was able to make the step up. Every step he had to take, he took in a stride. He was brilliant at doing that.
And what was it a sense of when you say you wouldn't have noticed it? There was other players there that probably shone through, but I've heard of other players that he would have been the hardest trainer, the hardest working trainer on the pitch. Even if he didn't have the raw talent at that stage, was he a hard worker? Did you see?
Yeah, again, I've answered this. People would have heard me telling this or saying this a lot of the times. We were in the initial stages then of working full time. We weren't really very good at planning full time training at that time, and there was an awful lot of the players were probably looking back at it now. The players were probably overworked, and there was a lot of people when they were stale. a lot of, it would have led to a lot of staleness among the players. But when everyone else was tired, I think the one thing that I can say, and I think everyone else that was on the course at the time would say, was that Roy kept working. He always worked away,
Some engine on him. Good engine.
Yeah.
And
well, it wasn't just an engine, it was more a mental thing. They were mentally tired rather than physically tired.
Right.
Because they were going in every day and they were training twice every day. And we were probably working them too hard. We were probably even working them hard all the way up to Friday. They were playing tired at the weekend for their clubs on a Saturday. So, like I said, we were feeling our way in full-time football at that time. It was actually the first full-time course. Roy was on the first full-time course for players. We'd had a couple of full-time false courses for coaches before that, but that was the first one specifically.
They were the guinea pigs, really.
Yeah.
And was he a centre midfielder?
Yeah. He was able to play. I always remember him playing. I always remember being struck by how comfortable he was when he was asked to play somewhere else, but he was a centre midfield player.
Nice.
And the one thing that kind of, I suppose you're saying there that he got picked up because of was that engine. So, like, obviously he was able to, when players were tired, put in the little bit extra, and maybe that kind of carried him through. Maybe he wasn't as talented as the likes of Pat or something like that, but the energy that he had at the later stages was a massive difference between him kind of making the jump and going to the next level. But, like, is that something that you as a coach would really, I suppose, encourage your players now at this stage? Well, like, would you use that as like look what happened here, like, and you bring it up as nearly an example to say, if you don't have the best talent in the world, at least your energy can kind of get you to the next stage? Like, is that something that you really push with fitness? Like,
I would hate to have given you the wrong impression there, Collie, that he wasn't talented.
Yeah, talented. Yeah.
Basically, there was 22 players on the course, and like I said, there would have been only a couple that would have been rated ahead of him.
Yeah.
So he's physically able, probably not the. He probably wasn't the same as the other two that I spoke about, because he was more of, well, he was less of a dribbler than they were. He wasn't as probably as explosive as they were, but like, there was no doubt. I'm not saying he wasn't talented, But of course, sure, every coach does the same. Like, every coach that's ever had a really, really good player would use that player as an example for the guys who came behind them.
Yeah. Paddy, do you want to jump on to the next one?
Yes. Okay. So we have from Grey Squirrel. Who was a player you've coached recently and thought that he was a special player? So maybe one that's either made it in either the League of Ireland or the Premier League. I would assume this is what he means.
Yeah. Well, Liam Scales now is breaking into the Celtic team. Liam was I had Liam as a schoolboy player from under 9 to under 13. So he's the one that automatically springs to mind at the moment,
Yeah.
I was actually trying to contact Liam to try to get him on, but obviously he's got to move. He's got other things on his mind at the moment, going over to Celtic. So now Liam looks like a top player. I really hope it works out for him, and I'd love to see him kind of make a massive career over there. Like, because I don't know what it is. I think there's not enough Irish players going massive. Like, Roy Kane obviously was one that's been massive, and you've had players like Seamus Coleman and the stuff like that have had really good Premier League careers. I'd love to see it happen. Like, it needs to happen more often, I think. And I think obviously with the new style of coaching that the whole nation is bringing, that's what we're set up for, I believe, anyway.
So I think, Liam, I honestly think I watched the St. Johnstone game lately, and to be honest, it's the first time I've seen a Scottish game in full in a long time. And number one, I think he's well capable of playing in Celtic's first team. He was very, very comfortable that day. And the impression I had of him playing that day was that he could do a little bit more. I think he could actually step up his game a little bit and even do better than he's doing at the moment, Well, he's a very level-headed fella. He's a very intelligent young fella, and he's one young fella who knows that he needs to be patient. And there's not many of them. You were talking to Paul Byrne last week, and the lesson was learned there.
Prime example there.
Very, very few young men have that patience, and I think Liam is so level-headed that he knows he has a time. He's a lot of time ahead of him, and I think he will do it. Well,
that's great. That's good. And it's good to hear them type of things coming from such a top coach who's seeing the players at them levels. I think that'll kind of stand to him. Like, hearing that even is probably a massive boost for him. So Well, that's good.
He's written the foreword for the new book, by the way, Collie. I just thought I'd throw that in early.
Yeah, throw it in. Yeah.
Just get me hits in early.
Yeah. Right. Next one is thoughts on Stephen Kenny and the current Irish setup. So I would say, like, what have you thought from obviously not the best start in the world with Stephen Kenny, and then obviously improvements have come, and I think performances have definitely improved over the last four games. I'd say, with the 2 Portugal games in particular being really impressive. What would you have kind of your full analysis on how Stephen Kenny has done so far?
Yeah, well, first of all, Collie, I think people will think that we're being set up for this, but I just want to throw this in as well, that Stephen actually wrote the foreword for the first book.
Yeah, I know that. I was going to say.
So we have to put hand on heart and say we did not rehearse that, you know. Look, I knew Stephen from the League of Ireland, and at the time when I was working in the FAI, Stephen came through as badges with us at the time. So I saw Stephen doing his B license, and then I saw him do his A license. I was lucky enough to be on the staff at both those courses, you know. Yeah. So look, I've always followed his career with interest. I've always been 100% of the belief that he could be successful in this job because of how well he did in the League of Ireland, because of the way he went about doing the fantastic job that he did with Dundalk, obviously.
Yeah, Dundalk.
And do you think after the Irish job he could make the move over to England?
Look, Paddy, who knows what anything can happen in football, you know.
Yeah.
Look, you might have asked the same question about Brian Kerr. I thought Brian might have got a job in England, and
absolutely,
it didn't work out. You just can't tell what's going to happen.
What they're looking for, yeah.
But like, don't forget he was in Scotland.
Yeah, exactly.
And he did quite well in Scotland initially, and then obviously things fell away from him there, you know. So I don't think Stephen is the type of guy who would be intimidated by any setup, any dressing room that he'd walk into. So once he's given time, and I think that's been borne out now, once he's been given time, I think Stephen can do a good job no matter where he goes.
Yeah, and I never kind of hide away from the fact that I was a big skeptic at the start, just because I thought I always said now I admire what he's doing in terms of his tactics. He has an identity and it's brilliant. And then I was like, oh, is it going to work with them players? But I suppose, look, he's got some great players coming through, and he's really using them well, and especially the performances against Portugal. For me, although, look, we didn't get the results we wanted, for me, they were the most impressive things. Like the 3-0 wins against Azerbaijan or Montenegro, look, we probably expect them type of wins, but it's good to see that we are getting the 3-0 wins and the comfortable wins. But the performances against the big teams is, for me, the more impressive thing.
I started seeing it. I thought I saw the tide turn in the Serbia game, because I really, really thought we did well against Serbia. And I really, really did think, and again, it was proved in the end. I thought Serbia were the stronger team. I thought Serbia were a much stronger team than Portugal. And we did really, really well against them, you know?
Yeah, that was it, yeah. I suppose then we'll jump on to the next one. Paddy, do you want to jump on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, from Big John Lad. What is the best memory of your career to date? So the proudest moment, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a hard one. Without thinking too deeply about it, if you ask me that straight away, the first thing that really pops up in my head is working with Shamrock Rovers in the League of Ireland. You know, Rovers were, when I was growing up, I was going to watch Pat Bourne and all them in the four in a row team, and anyway, Rovers was always the glamour team in Ireland anyway, you know.
Yeah.
So I think working at Shamrock Rovers, being first team coach for 2 seasons at Rovers, would have been, for me, it's the time I look back on as being the best club I was with, and I think I was probably at my peak then in terms of what I was doing and how well I worked with the players and how well I got on with the players, and you know, and the results that we were getting at the time weren't bad either.
Yeah, that's an amazing achievement, and what a club! Like, I suppose I got my season ticket now for this season. I started bringing the young fella last season, and I have to say the standard of football. I wasn't a big League of Ireland fan beforehand. I was more into the Premier League and that, but I've gotten into it in a big way now over the last season and a half, and I'm only realising now how big of a club Shamrock Rovers is. So, yeah, I'd say the manager.
I remember when we first went up, Liam Buckley brought me up, you know, And when we first went up to some of the senior players, Derek Tracy, the likes of Derek Tracy, and that were saying, look, it's different here,
Yeah.
And it was different. It was different at Rovers. The expectation of the crowd is different. It's like it does feel, and don't forget, at that time, that wasn't a great time. That was the check bouncing days.
Exactly.
Where everyone got their turn to have their check bounce, and it wasn't great. And even though that was going on, it still had that feeling of being great, And it's great now you're going up to the stadium. The 2 seasons I was there, the stadium was only half. Well, it wasn't even half. It was probably 10% finished at that time. They'd started it, and then the building had stopped. But then they brought us up in both pre-seasons to get the team photos taken up in the stadium, in front of the big Umbro sign. But all that was there was the big Umbro sign.
Yeah, just the Umbro sign.
There was nothing else. There was a lot of blocks lying around, and there was a big Umbro sign. But,
looking for a bit of grass, huh?
Yeah, and both times the chairman, both seasons, the chairman said, for whatever reason, October is the magic month. We're going to be in by October. I guarantee you we're going to be in by October. But there was a good few Octobers after that before the lads actually got to play there.
Great answer. Great answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. So that's a good one. So Paddy, we'll move on to the next one. I'll read it out. So football mad. So can't football mad. Your most frustrating moment as a coach. That's an interesting one.
I don't know. It's hard,
doesn't it?
Like there's millions, well not millions, but there's probably thousands of frustrating moments. Again, we could have done with a bit of rehearsal on this one. You've given me a bad ball here now, I have to say.
I was talking to Paddy about it, and I was just thinking, like, how do you react to say for instance, you're 13-year-old, you're teaching 13-year-old, and you have a drill, and this 13-year-old just cannot get the drill into his head. I'm like, what do you do in that moment where he just cannot get it? Do you pull them aside, or do you simplify it?
Would have been the benefit of age, and again, the benefit of experience, and the benefit of, as you get older, you learn the value of patience.
Yeah.
There would have been a time where I would have been pulling my hair out there, but you're patient. I think as you get older and you get more experience, you get a level of understanding with that kid that that kid is just going to take longer than the other kids
to develop,
and so on and so on. But in terms of frustration, and no matter what level I've worked at, like whether it would be an under 12 team, or it would be Shamrock Rovers first team, or it would have been one of the junior international teams or whatever, right? The most frustrating thing for me always has been to see guys with talent not be successful because of their lack of attitude, because of their lack of application, because they haven't done everything that they could do to make themselves really, really to be players, And as you can imagine, I've come across a lot
lack of discipline really
over the years,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sure. Look, I think Paul, who we had on last week, is a prime example. Again, he was the first to admit it. He had bags of talent, and then just the attitude at times just let him down. So.
You booked me in some week, by the way. Some can follow that lad.
So actually, just following on from that, actually, gone a little bit away from the question. A couple of people that have come on the show have talked about once you make it at one of these clubs, whether it be a Scottish club or an English club, and the Irish lad has to move over, they're not really looked after well. Are things changing in football now? Do you see, like, even from Irish clubs, that like if a player is taken in, that it's not just about the football and the training and the coaching, it's about their whole life in terms of, like, making sure they're a good person, making sure they're not being dragged down the wrong road, whether it be drink or gambling,
I definitely see that, Paddy. No, and again, that's on the condition that no one really knows what's going on in the clubs unless you're in the club. Yeah. We can only ever give an outsider's view, but it certainly seems now that the clubs have a much more, for want of using a better word, they have a much more holistic approach to how their players develop, and that's all the way up to the first team now, because you see an awful lot. You see a lot of examples now of the first team players in the professional clubs going into the community and looking like they're actually interested in doing it. There probably would have been a time there that probably happened in 3 different phases. There was probably a time when they would never think of doing that. There was probably a phase where the players did it, but were probably being forced in it and felt that they were being forced into it. But I do get the impression now from all that I see, and again, it's from the outside, that there is a much more holistic approach, that the clubs realise now that the players have got to be, for want of a better term, rounder. They've got to have rounder personalities. They've got to just think a little bit more outside themselves.
The mental health is so important, isn't it? Because there is so much free time as a professional footballer. Like, you go to your training, then you play your match, and then everything in and around that, then like you're in a bubble. You know, you're stuck in a bubble. And you need something.
And it's a strange one because like you say, they are in a bubble, so their world is an awful lot different than our world. Yeah. But still, they can suffer. They can suffer from being left isolated, even though they're in the middle of the group, you know. And that's the classic story. And Paul told that story last week, you know. You know, they finished training in the morning and then they're left on their own for the rest of the day. Now, some people will react, will have no problems with that, but it's the 1 in 1,000 or whatever it is that needs to be looked after, that won't take to that lifestyle as well.
It is a kind of a complete change, I suppose, when you make that move. I just noticed it straight away, and I know it's something small, but again, it was Killian Phillips going over, signed for Crystal Palace. So Killian, I was talking to probably a week or two ago, and he was coming on the podcast. So we had agreed, done the graphic up, got it out, and then I got an email from Crystal Palace. So they said, look, could you give us a call? So we rang them up, and they were like, look, this isn't going to happen. Basically, Killian is only after joining the club. We think it's too soon. We're after refusing media interviews with anybody else. So, like, already just that type of thing was just for him. Because he was texting me about it, and he was like, I had no idea. So this is where it's going to be a complete change. And this is what the whole bubble thing is. Like, it's a complete change for him. Like, so
I think one of the elements there, Collie, I think the clubs have got to be more aware of that now, because like every player's every move is under a microscope now.
100%.
You know, the whole social media thing. I honestly think, I don't think it should do, but I do think it has changed.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think, look, I understood it. I said, look, you're spot on. And they said, look, it's not a no forever, just maybe next season. I said, no, that's fine. Look after the lad, make sure you get settled down.
I was just going to say, it's great to see that they're looking after him that way. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, and that was good to see. And it was I was kind of actually impressed by that. So, Paddy, we'll move on to the last question of the questions. And it's one that we're going to be asking every single guest. I'll let you run with it there.
That's it. Okay, so get your thinking cap on. If your house was on fire and you had to run and grab 2 things, not including your wife, from your career.
Well, it would have been the 2 kids first.
Don't mind them.
She would have been palling around
already.
Should have loved that.
2 things from your career, what would they be and why?
God, I don't know. I know this is going to be a strange one. It's a strange one, but like, for some reason, all my way up, I know I've written the books and all that, but I was obsessed with the books. I was obsessed with reading. I was obsessed with writing all the way up. You know, I was lucky when I was a kid playing for St. Joseph's that there were great mentors in the club who when they saw that I was interested in coaching, took an interest in me that way. Graham Kelly, the manager of the DLR Waves in the Women's League, his granddad, Jem Kelly, was a guy who gave me, believe it or believe it not, he gave me the FA coaching magazines from the 1970s, you know, and some old books. I think I have a Real Madrid coaching book that dates from 1959, believe it or believe it not, you know. And I have all of them still. I've kept everything, you know. So I will go in to grab as many books as I could, you know.
That's
number one. And I suppose, you know, and again, I'll put my hand out to be slapped here, you know. I would go for my schoolboy international caps. Because there's nothing really else from my career that you can talk about. Like, you know?
Well, just what if it was one book you could pick? What would it be? The most influential book for your maybe career or?
Oh, there we go.
I'm only joking.
Give me that 20 quid later, huh?
That's a really difficult question now. That's a really difficult question. I tell you, you guys, I don't know whether you guys probably know the history of the game. You're that interested in it. I don't know if you remember Dave Sexton, who was the Manchester United manager for a while and Chelsea manager and that. Dave Sexton wrote a coaching book, and it wasn't your normal coaching book. Like he was using examples from chess, and he was using examples from. I always remember an example. He talked about touch being the most important thing in football, and he used an example of the Bach piano pieces that he practiced for touch and stuff like that. So it was a coaching book, but it wasn't a coaching book.
Yeah,
it was a coaching book that wasn't just, as they say in America, it wasn't just the X's and O's, but it had a huge amount of his personality and his different way of looking at the game in it, and that would stick out in my head, and that would be the way that I'd sort of try and go about my own stuff as well, And funnily enough, really, look, you've got to try and get Anto Whelan on because Anto's a League of Ireland legend, but Anto was on my team in Joe's, and Anto ended up playing at United with David Sexton, and he said he was absolutely fantastic. He said he was a great guy. Now I never met him, but that's you did ask that question, man. Yeah. Right, all tackle soccer. I doubt if it's being printed now. You might find it in a car boot sale somewhere.
Sure. Look, we've more important books to talk about, which will lead us on to the next thing. Larry, we're going to jump on to. Look, I was going to talk a little bit about kind of your footballing career, but I think you said it there. The Irish international caps as a schoolboy was the best, so we'll leave it at that. We'll jump on to your coaching.
I wouldn't like you to leave that, Colin, because I think like I said, I was a schoolboy international. Like there's been thousands of schoolboy international.
Who were you with schoolboy level?
I was with Joe's,
Oh yeah.
In Sallynoggin, and it's Joe's. It was Joe's then, and it'll always be Joe's today. I don't know when this Joey started.
Joey's,
but it was Joe's then. But the thing about it was, like, I was sort of one of those fellas who didn't make it, and I think that's what put me down the coaching route more than anything else, because I sort of had a taste of it. I'd seen how it was done, and I wasn't good enough to make it as a player, So then obviously the next best thing then was to be a coach, to stay involved.
At what age did you kind of make that decision? Like, was it an early enough age where you said, "I'm probably not good enough"?
I think no. Look, I still wake up at night dreaming I'm going to be playing the Shamrock Rovers first team.
Bring the boots anyway. Bring the boots every match you go to, just in case.
No. It was just that. Look, I always coached. Like, funnily enough, I did always coach. Like in Joe's, and you probably heard me saying this before on other inferior podcasts, if you want. But,
I like that. We're clipping that one.
Yeah. When we were 13 back in the club back then, you always got asked to take a team in the what would be called the academy now, was just the plain old Saturday morning league back then,
Yeah.
So like, I'm sort of proud to say now, and I've been saying it everywhere this year, next year I'll be 50 years coaching, So I've always had that bug. I think that was chosen for me. I don't think I chose that myself.
Yeah. So look, we'll talk about the books. Obviously, the first book that you have is Let the Players Play. It's called. Have it up on the screen there for anybody watching. So talk to us a little bit about this book. Like, what is the logistics of this book? Is it basically from the lowest age possible, and what the fundamentals that you teach a kid? Like, talk us a little bit about this for anyone that hasn't read it.
No, what it is. Right, I sort of have to go back to why I wrote it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Over the years, working on the coaching courses, and and obviously seeing thousands upon thousands of coaches doing sessions in clubs as well. I always found, and every coach, every tutor on a coaching course will tell you this, that guys are good at doing drills and they're able to put on part practices and stuff like that. But it's actually playing in the game and coaching in the game is the hardest part of coaching.
Yeah.
Because it's not predetermined, and things are going to happen in front of you at random. So what this book is, it's taking coaches, it's giving coaches the opportunity right from the start to learn how to coach in the games.
That's good, yeah. So that's obviously you're reacting. It's more of a reactive thing where you're reacting to a certain situation.
Yeah.
And is it like is this one?
And that's what coaching is, Collie, by the way.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That is what coaching is, because a lot of coaches don't understand that.
Yeah,
it's fixing what's in front of you. It's not copying what they say on YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was one of the other reasons for writing it, because everyone sees so much information now. I've seen a trend, and everyone has seen this trend over the last few years, where you're seeing coaches trying to recreate YouTube sessions with kids that just aren't able for it, And look, we've always known this. This is nothing new. The most learning happens in games. It doesn't happen in the drills. The learning happens in the games. So this is the idea that I put forward in the book. And what I've done is I've started at the smallest game possible, which is 2 against 2.
Yeah.
Right. And I've taken it from there up. Now in the first book, it's 2 on 2, 3 on 3, and 4 on 4. Right, so all the questions and all the situations, in terms of my experience, everything that the coach will come across when they're teaching those games, I hope is included in the book.
That's good, because I have obviously been a part of 2v2s and 3v3s, obviously playing as a player myself. But I think I don't know what way, have you got, just so anybody that is interested in buying the book knows what kind of you're gonna get when you open that page up. Have you got, say, pictures with drills and then a little paragraph underneath on what you want and what you're expecting on each drill?
That's exactly what it looks like, but except that we don't use the D word.
Right, okay, I won't use it. Yeah.
No, you see, I have a name for using drills, and I call it the boring method,
Fair enough,
Very, very few. Every now and again, you'll hit on a drill that the players like and buzzes them up and stuff like that. But I think people have got to realize, and over the years, you learn that, drills don't impact the performance in the games as much as coaches think that they do.
Yeah.
Right? Because drills are predetermined. Drills are doing things that the coach has decided will happen. So you pass to the left, and then you pass to the right, and then you shoot. This is predetermined. That's not the way the game happens. Okay. So what I've tried to do is literally take it from the start. In terms of my experience, when we start playing 2 on 2, this is the first thing that these players will do.
Yeah.
Right. And build from there. And what I'm trying to do is again, big picture. What I'm trying to do is to give the coaches the ability to use questioning to help the players rather than just pass over the information all the time. So actually, the whole book is just full of questions. It's question after question after question. And again, in my experience, I've seen it happen so much now that it's very unusual for me not to be able to predict what's going to happen next. So the first thing that happens when the 2 kids come out is they're going to run out together. They're going to be on top of each other. And we know that, and it builds from there.
Yeah, I suppose that is literally going straight down to the bottom and working your way up. And I think I don't know if it was in the forward from Stephen Kenny, but I think he had mentioned that you simplified the games to a level where anyone can understand it. I think I read that somewhere
I wish the
games so easily.
I wish, Collie, I had €1 for every single time I've said this.
Really,
The job of the youth coach is to simplify the game. For young players, not complicate the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And the more you think about them, and you stand at the side of pitches, and it doesn't matter where they are, and all you'll see is coaches complicating the game for young players.
Yeah, and that's where you lose them, I think, as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And the thing about it is as well, and again, and I notice most of the podcasts fall into this trap as well. Everyone is talking about elite now and high performance. And how do you promote a high performance culture, and how do you lead players? But for 99.9% of coaches that are taking teams, they're never going to go near an elite player.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
What they need to know is they need to know how to teach the kids the basics of the game. You know, again, the internet. I was looking at just by chance. I was looking at the under-10s from Ghent in Belgium today.
Yeah.
Doing a session, and I was saying to myself, well, if I could have got the Rovers lads when I was at Rovers to do that, I would have been very happy, you know.
Yeah.
But these are elite players, you know. These are the best players in the city of Ghent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're getting the top of the bunch, like.
And like, we're not even working with the best players in the city of Tala.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or Dunleary or anything like that. You know? We're not doing that. We're working at the grassroots, and this is what the book is for. Like, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying that this is 100% true, but I'm saying it's 95% true. A parent who gets thrown his team at the appropriate age here should be able to pick that book and take the players from A to Z.
Brilliant. Paddy,
Larry, just continue on with the book. I'm on the Big Picture Coach in Ireland website now. This is where you can get the book.
Yeah.
I coach my little young fella's team, so I'm definitely going to get the first 2 in what will be a series of books in coaching. How many books do you plan on writing to finish this?
until me hand drops off, Paddy.
An encyclopedia.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what the plan is. The plan is very simple. In the book, and speaking of plan, in the book, there's a development model. Now, we've all heard this, again, because of the internet and all this, we've all heard of player pathways now, and the FAI have a pathway, and, you know, and guys are uploading the Chelsea pathway, and you're seeing the Dutch FA's pathway and all that, you know. So I've really, really simplified that now, and I have a very simple pathway for young players, for grassroots players. So basically what I'm doing is I'm picking my way through that.
Yeah.
So they let the players play. Like I said, it's right from the start. It's when they first start to pass to each other. Yeah. So when they're playing 2-on-2. So it'll build and build and build and build until eventually there should be a book on the 11-a-side game and probably on different aspects of the 11-a-side game. But that's a lot further down the road. It depends on how the next one sells.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not going to be like Lord of the Rings. We're still waiting on your man to write the last 2 books.
Yeah. I'm absolutely delighted with the success of the first book now. I'm bowled over by it, you know. It's actually gone for a second reprint now this week, and
brilliant.
I couldn't have envisaged when I did it that it would be that successful, you know.
Well, just for anyone that does want to buy the book, we are going to be putting links up on the Instagram page. On we're going to be clipping stuff like this and putting it up on the TikTok page. It's going to be everywhere. So anywhere we can get the link out to the book, you'll be able to get it through that. If anybody is struggling to find the link or anything like that, message me. I'll directly send you the link to it, and you can get it. So we'll make it very simple for anybody that wants to. No, it's not a problem.
Really appreciate that.
So look, that's let the players play. So you have another book, which is this only released probably a couple of months, 2 or 3 months?
No, this was last year's.
Last year, okay. Yeah, sorry, no, but your new one. So your new one.
Oh, the new one's only been last Friday.
Last Friday, okay, perfect. Yeah. We have you on the perfect time. So
brilliant. Thanks very much again.
So this one here, so move the ball. So obviously you're moving into more kind of, would you say, advanced kind of?
No.
Right.
It's exactly the opposite, because in the move, in the let the players play, we're talking about playing 2-on-2, 3-on-3, and 4-on-4, and in that book, I'm constantly referencing the practices that you should use at the same time, and this is those practices. Now, when I say all the practices, there's only 3 of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And they're what? And it's the big joke. It's the joke that's made it to the cover of the book, right? The joke is everyone nowadays talks about rondos, and again, everyone knows about coaching now. Yeah. Everyone knows about the low block and the inverted fullback and the checking your shoulder and all this, you know. Yeah. But you know, everyone calls them rondos now. But like, I'm open to correction on this. But as far as I know, rondo means round.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
So rondo means round. So that means when you're in a circle. So the rondo is the 5-on-2 when everyone's in a circle and there's 2 players in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Now, they're the 3 most basic, what I call numbers up practices. I don't call them rondos, right? Yeah. It's the 5-on-2, it's the 3-on-1, and it's the 4-on-2, right? So I joke with the players that 3-on-1 is not a rondo, it's a triangolo, because there's only 3 players. right?
Yeah.
And then when you move on to the 4-on-2, it's a diamondo because it's 4 players. Right? So they're not rondos.
All right, Del boy.
Yeah, I know, yeah. It's my own joke. Anyone who knows me knows I've always been guilty of laughing at my own jokes before they ever get to the finish.
You can't entertain yourself then. What,
yeah,
what
exactly.
you got,
you know, and if you're doing this yourself, you can put what you like on the cover, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But,
fucking book, you what you want.
But right, what it does is, again, I hate using all these modern terminology, but it's actually a deep dive into those practices that we all know. It's all the coaching points from those practices. Now, usually, say, for example, 3-on-1, you go to a coaching book and you'll see 3-on-1 in a coaching book, and there's probably a half a page about it.
Yeah.
Right. So in this book, there's a chapter about it. And again, it follows on from the idea for the grassroots coach that was in the first book. Everything you need to know about doing it is in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Every single coaching point that you need to make in 3-on-1 is in the book. And again, it's done the same way. It gives the coaches the questions to ask the players rather than just giving out the information. Like you could give out the information in the half a page, but it's how the coach spots what's going on, number one.
Yeah.
Questions the players and helps them see themselves what's going on, and then helps the coach to help the players to find their own answers. Because the big picture again is that we're trying to teach players to come up with their own answers, to see things for themselves rather than do what the coach is shouting from the sideline for them to do.
Yeah, brilliant.
And the thing, I suppose, is the coach has to have a complete and full understanding of what he's trying to achieve with whatever he's running. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, because when he doesn't see something happening, how can he correct it? So I presume that this would more so kind of explain what to look out for. And
that's exactly what it is called. That is what it is. It's what to look out for. Now, again, in my experience, this is what happens next, right? So let's put it very simply. A couple of the stages in it, like it's all very simple and it's all very logical. So the first stage is to actually get the players to move.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so get them to move. It doesn't matter where they're moving at that stage. The coach should be happy if they're moving. And then the next stage, once they're moving, is to add a bit of precision to their movement.
Yeah.
Right. So again, the different ways that they can move poorly, for want of a better term, or their bad movement is identified. Right. So that, let's say, for example, if you're on the ball and I come to help you, if I come to you with my feet facing you, I can't see the rest of the square.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, simple things like that.
Yeah.
And they might be simple to experienced coaches, and they might be simple to high-level coaches, but the coaches for whom this book is designed, these are grassroots. These are the parents, right, that have been thrown into the deep end and have to coach their players, their kids' teams. Yeah. You know, and so everything the aim of the book is to make sure that everything they need is there.
That's brilliant. And just on the two books, I don't know, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I don't know if you're going to notice. How many pages are we talking in each book?
Right, because there's only the three practices in the first one, or sorry, in the second one. It's a bit smaller. In the first book is 160 pages.
Okay, yeah, right, that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, and the second book is 120 pages. So
I mean, but 380 pages of football knowledge, like, you know what I mean?
But they're twins. They are twins, Collie. They have to go. They are together, you know.
Yeah.
Because again, that's an important point. It's a hugely important point for coaches that they don't see, even though when it's explained to them, it's as plain as the nose in your face. Right. The test of how good your drills are is when you see it coming out in the games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the example that we've just given about someone coming a player arriving to help his teammate. Yeah. Right. If he's learning how, or she's learning to arrive with her feet open in the square, right? The test of the coach's effectiveness is that player arriving in the game
in a match. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, so I suppose anything you've taught, you need to see that happening in the game. Otherwise,
this is the joined up thinking that I don't see. Now, and again, I'm open to correction on this. I don't see this. I see it everywhere. I see a lot of National League underage coaching sessions, right? I go and watch, and I happen to be in pitches where they're going on and stuff like that. And I'm seeing them doing stuff that I know doesn't relate to the games at the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is training for the sake of training.
Yeah.
And that's not what coaching is about, because coaching, a lot of people fall into the age-old trap of thinking that it's about putting on good sessions and it's about really, everything looking good and people moving here and moving there. It's not. It's about the game at the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is what I'm saying earlier on about coaches. It's fixing things.
Yeah, and it's good. It's great. It's great.
Who runs blindly. If you have a player who runs blindly in your game, it's in the square that you teach him not to run blindly in the game. So you take him out of the game, put him in the square, but then you've got to put him back in the game and build the bridge. Build the bridge between the square and the pitch.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Right, and I see it. I've seen it 100,000 times. Coaches are putting on sessions, right, and they're nice sessions, but they're standalone sessions. They have nothing to do with what's happening on the pitch of the weekend.
Yeah, and I suppose like that comes down to like, I suppose this whole thing that we're hearing a lot of is the development of a nation. It has to start there, doesn't it? Like that is the fundamental of getting our level of players improved. Look, we're talking about players that are at the lowest kind of earliest stages of their career, but one or two things could be the massive difference in them kind of coming up to the next level and taking that next step. So they nearly have an advantage by reading this book, getting these drills in kind of done correctly and bringing them into games. They're already a step ahead of the rest, like at that age anyway.
Yeah, I'm sort of shooting myself in the foot here, Collie, right, in terms of book sales.
Yeah.
Right? But you're talking about the future of the nation and the national team and all that, right? Yeah. That is out of, believe it or believe it not, right? It's out of our hands. And people think, look at me when I say that, And the reason I say that is, right, the guys who are going to be in the international team in, let's say, 15 years' time, right? You don't have to be a Nottingham Forest scout to pick them out now.
Yeah.
Your granny could go down to the pitch and pick them out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because they have the physical attributes.
Yeah.
Right? Now, most of them, and at the moment, most except one, they are not going to be developed as professional players here. They're going to be developed in England and increasingly in other places.
And it's funny you say that.
See the point I'm making? People criticize the FAI for what happens with the international team. But all of our players in the international team, they've been developed as professional players in England.
And Joe, it's actually hilarious because this is actually one of the posts that I put up on Instagram, and it was about the whole thing about, right, we're saying we want to change the culture of a nation. I was like, I think that's impossible to do unless you do it very early, but even at that, it's impossible to do. And then it was the exact same thing. I'm talking about players not developing with Stephen Kenny because he only has them for a certain amount of time. They're developing in England, so that's where they're actually getting all their development from. So I think I'm actually with you on that one.
Why can't that happen in Ireland, Larry? Like in terms of
because they're gone.
In England. Like just looking at what Collie said earlier about when we used to have a lot of Irish players, say in the top 2, 3, 4 teams in the Premier League. We're after going through a bit of a barren spell now in Ireland, where there's not really many players in the elite in the English league. We did have a lot of players, I suppose, being brought in from the United Kingdom back, say, in Jack Charlton's era and stuff. But then we had just after that, we had the Robbie Kanes, the Damien Duffs. But after that, then it's gotten really dry in terms of top talent. What has happened? Why do you like?
I think what's happened, Paddy, is the obvious thing has happened. Like you look back now, and I know it's a long time ago now, but when we had a lot of players, like we'd Mark Lawrence and we Ronnie Whelan, and we had Ray Houghton, all in the one team.
Yeah,
a little further back than that, we had Dave O'Leary, we had Frank Stable and Liam Brady all in the one team.
Yeah,
because the teams back then were made up of Irish, English, Scottish, and Welsh.
Yeah,
and now they're being squeezed out. They're being squeezed out even at under 15 level. Like there are French kids coming over and they're playing in the English clubs. Like it's part of the football. It's a cliche that football reflects the rest of society, but we live in a globalized society now. Like everyone knows everything, like, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
is it down to resources then? Because you're seeing the whole English, they have a lot more technical players coming out now, as opposed to what they would have had years ago as well.
Yeah, because, and again, I think, again, having a look at the bigger picture, right? The generation that came up, if you think of our really good teams, our Jack Charlton teams, right? The way they were made up, right? They were typical British, right? They were hardworking, solid professionals, hardworking. And we used to have one or two skillful players in the team. Like we had Duffer and we had Robbie Kane.
Yeah.
And the rest of the lads, now they were good players. I think Ronnie Whelan was a great player.
Yeah.
But he wasn't that type of player, you know? So with all the continental players coming over, and like I said about globalization, like when I was young, we saw a European match every now and again. We saw one match, right? Yeah. And it was highlights on a Wednesday night, you know, on Sports Night on a Wednesday night. We saw one match. But the great thing now is, right, again, it's a double-edged sword, right? Our players have been squeezed out of the English professional game, which is our nearest neighbour, and we'll always look to there, right? Yeah. But all our kids growing up are seeing Messi. They're seeing skillful play. Yeah. Skillful play is being modelled all the time. So every team is producing skillful players now because, for want of a better term, it's the fashion now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I was this is my excuse. Like, yeah, and again, I'm putting my hand. No, I'm going to get slaughtered for this. I was a skillful player when skill wasn't in fashion. My granddad tells me I'd be a millionaire now because I was skillful. Because I had good touch. I had good touch when good touch wasn't in fashion. But that's beside. Look, that's bullshit anyway. But the point I'm making is, skillful football is in fashion now. So all our kids growing up are seeing skillful play being modelled all the time, right? And they're seeing all the tricks, all the turns, and all our young kids now, they all have a trick. They all have a turn, right? They're all looking to pass the ball on the ground. I can remember when we were working with the FAI at the start, when I first started working with the FAI, we were trying to get people to play from the back, and we had unbelievable opposition. From people on coaching courses who didn't want to do it. We were trying to, and on the other side of things, we were trying to prioritize speed, right, and agility as being the most important components of fitness. But again, we'd a fight on our hands because everyone wanted to run 5,000 million laps. They wanted to run up sides of mountains. Like, I've seen some bad pitches in my time, but I've never seen any as steep as Killiney Hill. Yet all the footballers in Dunleary run up Killiney Hill, like, you know.
It's true. Yeah.
But that was the world that we had back then. And things are different now, and things are much better because of that. So all of these things are good now. So we are starting again to see more skillful players being produced because it's the fashion for skillful players. Young kids have skillful players as their heroes.
Yeah, that's true, and I suppose you try and model what your heroes doing.
Yeah.
Larry, look, we'll finish up. So there's the book. So obviously there's the let the players play, and then we have the move the ball. So we'll just move off the books just for a few minutes anyway. Again, like I said, we will be putting. Oh, sorry, no one wants to see the Chelsea.
Yeah, that is a mistake.
I get abused now about that one.
That's embarrassing.
Obviously, I'll put links and I'll put pictures and stuff and all that all up on our Instagram or social medias everywhere. So that'll be getting plastered out.
I really appreciate that, Carl. Thanks very much.
No, that's no problem. So look, I suppose we're going to move just a little bit off the books, I suppose. So. Look, looking at what you've done and like obviously reached the top, you've coached from the lowest to the highest level possible, and then you're kind of a how do you say you're a coach yourself, two coaches. So how does that like
a tutor? They call it a tutor. When they first started using that term, I wasn't sure whether I was a tutor or an Elizabethan, but eventually I'm a tutor.
Tutor, all right, fair enough. I suppose you want to remove that. But do you butt heads a lot with coaches because maybe your philosophy doesn't match theirs? Do you find that much? Or do they just accept it? Like?
Yeah, look, there's a thing. Look, I'll give you an example, Collie, right, at the moment, and it's very strange at the moment. People wouldn't believe how coaches, even at the very highest level, they can easily fall into the trap of following fashion. And I'll give you an example at the moment. All of a sudden, this season and last season, there are no players on the posts at corners.
What is that about? I know. What's that?
Someone had that idea,
right? Ridiculous.
And then everyone else followed it, right? Yeah. And that's what football is like. And I've always been a doubter. I've always been a skeptic in terms of fashion and what's the accepted wisdom. I've always challenged that. And I know. I know I said I wouldn't swear, and this is the nearest thing I'll get to swearing. There's an old saying in football, right? And to me, it's amplified nowadays, right? There's an old Morris Price used to say, "Bullshit baffles brains," right? And all I'm saying now, and again, it's my age. I know it's a function of my age now to give out about what's going on in modern days, But there's so much absolute bullshit going on, like friends of mine are always sending me this stuff off the internet that guys are putting up, and just absolutely ridiculous.
You can't teach 50 years of experience.
It's complicating the game now, and things that don't make sense to me, I always challenge. Right? And a lot of the time I find myself swimming against the tide, and that's always been the way anyway, But I enjoy that little bit of friction now, I have to tell you.
Yeah, good, yeah.
I like butting heads against the young lads,
Oh, that's good, yeah. Paddy, you can jump in something.
Yeah, for your for someone thinking about going to do their coaching badges, is there an awful lot of work in it, and how long, if you're committed to it, can it take to get from
right to the top? It was only last weekend. I got a little bit of exposure on the internet for an interview I did somewhere else, but I will go over the exact same thing again, Paddy, because I used to say this to the coaches on the coaching courses, right? A lot of people come on coaching courses, and fair enough, there's no problem. I don't have a problem with it, right? They don't really want to be coaches because they want just to be able to put on sessions for their kids' teams, and that's fine, right? But anyone who wants to be a coach has to realize that coaching is teaching. You have to be able to teach. You have to learn how to teach. Obviously, you've got to learn the raw material. You've got to learn you've got to get the knowledge, and then you've got to get the coaching skills. Okay, and my advice to someone who wants to be a coach, right, and they don't want to hear this because most of the guys that I'm talking about now are your own age, they're youngish. Right? Like I said already, young fellas, the one quality that they don't have is patience, right? But at the risk, the great Ben, you guys probably never even heard of Ben Hannigan. Ben Hannigan was a famous League of Ireland player, but Ben Hannigan used to hold court all the time, and he used to say, "I don't mind repeating myself as long as I'm saying the right thing," So I'll do a Ben here now. I don't mind repeating myself because I really
it's right.
Right? If someone really wants to be a coach, right, you go on your first coaching course. Now, your first coaching course is designed for coaches of players that are, I don't really know now, to be honest, what the FAI is, but I'm just saying in general, the first course is probably for under nines.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
so
they've
you should have an under 9 team then.
I think they've changed it now to different steps where you can really go in at a smaller level, and then I think if you want to go and do the certain age groups,
again, I'm sorry to repeat on your podcast what I've said on other ones, but
that's fine.
I'm going to repeat it again, right? Okay, it's changed so many times since my time that I've just lost count. I know what it was in old money. To me, it made sense in old money, right? Right. To learn technique, to learn skill, to learn the principles of the game, and to learn the full game in that order. To me, that was simple, but I don't know. Again, maybe I'm oversimplifying everything. But the point I'm making is the first coaching course anyway should be designed for someone who's coaching the youngest kids. Yeah. So what I say to coaches who really want to be coaches, do your first coaching course and have your team. Start with your team then. Okay, so on that coaching course, you're probably given 2 seasons work to do, right? Yeah. So when those 2 seasons are finished, you go and do your next coaching course, right? So which is your coaching course for 10 to 12 or whatever that is. Yeah. So then when you do that coaching course, you have 2 years work under your belt, right? You have 2 years worth of knowledge under your belt from the course, right? Yeah. Then you do the 2 years practice for that level. Right?
Yeah.
So now the players are under 12, right? So now if they've done all the previous work and your team has progressed nicely, well, then you might be able to go, maybe even at that stage, to go and do the UEFA B license, right? So by the time you've got your UEFA B license, your team is heading for under 16, right? But you have 6 years of coaching experience under your belt. You have 6 years of coaching experience under your belt. Now, if you, again, and we're dependent on the level of player, obviously we're dependent on the level of player. If your players have done all the stuff and have progressed nicely along with you, right, you should be able to go and do your A license now, right? Plus, your players should be able to do the stuff that's in the A license, right? So by the time you've done the course and graduated at the other end of it, you have 8 years of coaching experience behind you.
Yeah. So you're looking at the ones of 8 years really to get through them.
That's when you're starting.
That's at
the end of those 8 years, right? I thought I knew everything, right? the other 40 years now, I've been learning how much I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the way it works. And
you never stop learning. You never stop.
And unfortunately, young fellas and young girls don't want to hear that. They don't want to get the patience lecture from someone as grey as me, right? Because I can remember getting the patience lecture from fellas who were as grey as me and going, that's bullshit. That was all right in your day, mate, but that's not me. I'm going straight from the A license, you know, because I was the same, like, you know, everyone wants to do their A license and everyone wants to work in the League of Ireland, but you can't work it. Everyone can't work in the League of Ireland.
Exactly. There's only so many spots like that.
But if all the coaches did what I've just said, right? Imagine how the old rise and tide. What's the saying? Rise and tide floats all boats. Imagine how that level of good coaching ability is spreading out and making the whole country better. Making every part of the country is getting better coaching and the standard of play is coming up in every part of the country. If everyone wants to adopt that.
And I suppose that's when we kind of say like the building of a nation or something like that. That's kind of what we're referring to. I think is what. Well, look, I don't really say that, but when I've heard people saying that, we're building something for the future. That level of coaching from the bottom there right up to you going up to 16.
And it has got better, Collie. Like I said, when I first started, there was an anti-coaching bias. In football, there was an anti-coaching bias. If you came out when I first started, if you came out on the pitch with a clipboard, right, you were gone. Your credibility was gone. You were gone. You had no chance. Right? Now the opposite is the case. If you don't have your clipboard,
exactly,
and you don't have the mannequins. When I see the mannequins, that's it. When I see those mannequins coming out, that's it. You know, because I've never seen one of them make a proper move that forces a player to make a decision. Right? And the other one as well, now the tactical board on the side of the pitch. You know, that work has got to be done during the week. When I see someone at schoolboy level taking out a tactical board at the side of the pitch, I say to myself, as Brendan Bean used to say, Ockram is lost. Ockram is lost.
Get over yourself, like
no, but it's fashion. It is fashion, and
it is.
Like you look at that logically, and I see that fella with the tactical board. I'm saying, well, look, you shouldn't be doing that level of coaching on match day. You should have done that during the week.
That should have been done. Your players should have been ready for that.
With kids. And again, it's the same thing. They're looking at Guardiola's documentary, the Manchester City documentary. And
seeing it now, he's moving it around. Exactly.
It's not the same world. It's a different world like we're living in. Like
living the dream world sometimes. I suppose.
It's RTE compared to Hollywood, like, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all working for RTE. We're all in Fair City.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, look, Larry, I think it's been great having you on. We're up to our hour mark there. So, look, again, we'll probably get you on sometime in the future because I really enjoyed chatting to you. And
thanks very much, Colin. I really enjoyed it now, I have to say.
I suppose when the next book comes out, it's probably when you'll be looking to come on again.
It started. The writing started.
Summer, a couple of weeks, so
summer 2022.
Yeah, so look,
put it in your diaries.
So obviously, look, let the players play and move the ball are the two books. Again, I said it before, I say it again, we'll throw it all up on all the social medias and all. So it'll be very accessible to anybody that's listening or watching this podcast. So hopefully,
appreciate that.
We wish you the best of luck anyway with the new book. We know it's only out the last week or so. So I hope it's a massive success for you. And then the next book's coming as well. I hope everything's successful for you. So
thanks, lads.
So look, we're gonna end it there. Paddy, nice for joining me as well this week.
Yeah, no, thanks, Larry. I echo what Collie said. It's been a fascinating talk with you, and definitely, I'm sure we could talk for another 2 or 3 hours. So every time you bring out a new book,
there's one thing I can do. I might be able to move around the pitch too well anymore, but I can talk for hours.
I had the skill. I know you had the skill. Cheers, Larry. Thanks very much.
Thanks, lads.
So look, for anybody that is watching or listening, make sure you follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are watching or listening. We are everywhere, so make sure you follow us and subscribe. We will be back next week. Next Tuesday at 8:30, we'll have Gavin Houlihan, who was playing with Hartlepool United over in England at the moment. So Gavin is a friend of mine. Actually, I played football with him at Cherry Orchard. So going to be having we have a few good stories to tell from our Cherry Orchard days, which are comical stuff, like when we were up in the Milk Cup playing against Manchester United and stuff. So look, really looking forward to talking to them. Larry, massive thanks again. We're going to end it there. We'll get all of our stuff up on our socials, and we just want to say thanks again for coming on. All right,
thanks, lads.
Right, we'll see everyone the same time next week.